The whole thrust of the instructions given in Parashat Tetzaveh is a teaching on holiness. All right, the word Tetzaveh shares the exact same root word as mitzvah, tzav, and the root word is a verbal imperative used to express the desire for a definitive action on the part of the hearer. Go, do, act, perform. All right, that's why the portion is translated, you are to order, tetzaveh, you are to do, you are to command. And the word mitzvah means command. That's why they have the same root words. In other words, the Torah uses this word as a call to action. God, the invisible creator of the universe, has chosen to reveal his glory in such a way as to be visible in the Mishkan. And that's really why we are comfortable comparing the Mishkan to Yeshua. God the invisible is seen in the invisible Son. The Son is the visible presence of the invisible God. Right? So the Mishkan serves that function as well. We cannot see God, yet the Mishkan we can see, we can touch it. God informs us that he will take up residence in the most holy place, the Kadosh Kadoshim. The holy place, if you remember, housed the ark, the place where the wings of the Kruvim, the cherubim, as it's written in English, the Kruvim formed the lid of the Aron Kodesh, the Ark of the Covenant, and that is the place that God was symbolically. How should we put it? I don't want to say he lived there, but his reputation was such that he was the God who resided between the wings of the cherubim, the Kruvim, the cherubim. In fact, that's a title that we'll find in, like, say, the book of Samuel. At any rate, the Ark of the Covenant is the central focus, you could say, of the Mishkan. It's the heart of the tabernacle, and as such, you could say that the Mishkan itself served to bring the people close to the tabernacle, or close to the Ark of the Covenant, and yet the Ark of the Covenant could not be touched. Now, God commands his people to become holy, that is, set apart for the specific service of conveying his holiness to the surrounding peoples. So in one sense, we the people are drawn to his holiness, drawn to the Mishkan, drawn to the Aron Kodesh, and at the same time, God, in his part, for his covenant responsibility, promised to impart holiness to us so that when the surrounding people groups interacted with us, they would get a glimpse of the holiness of our holy God. We are his representatives, inasmuch as the Mishkan is a representative of him as well. We are to take his holiness and spread it to the surrounding nations. We are to be his witnesses. Now, this is seen more fully in the ministry that Yeshua left for us after he left this earth. The Talmudim, the Shlachim, the disciples, the sent ones, that they took his message and they didn't remain in Jerusalem. Rather, they took it to the other end of the earth, and that's why we have it here in the coastlands today. That's why we have it here in America and all over the world. Thank goodness that they followed the instructions like they were supposed to do. Israel also had a commission upon them, as it were. We're going to get to that commission in Deuteronomy chapter 4, but for now, we see that this holiness begins with a personal consecration. In chapter 28, verses 2 and 3, and verse 36 and verse 41, in chapter 29, verse 1, 9, 20 through 22, as well as verses 26 through 37, and also 43. This personal consecration, it starts with an individual. God says, be holy. And God says to the priests, be holy. And God says to the people, be holy. And God says to the priests, be holy. And God says to the people, yeah, why am I going round and round? Because we're all in this together. Some people get the idea that it was the priests who had to be holy, but the people could be mundane or ordinary. Not so. All of us were commanded to be holy. Hashem's holiness would not always be confined to Israel, in a sense that exclusivity was Israel's alone. For now, however, Israel was the primary focus of his glory. The nation of Israel, as it was comprised of Ezrach, native-born, and the Ger, who was grafted into Israel. But for now, it was a family affair, and it seemed like the surrounding nations wouldn't get it. We know that ultimately they will get it. However, for now, we're just seeing the smaller picture. The bigger picture will unfold as we read the later writings. Hashem has always Since the promise given to Abraham in Bereshit 12, verses 1 through 3, Hashem has always, this is why I mentioned all what I said earlier about the Gentiles and Jews, Hashem has always been interested in blessing all of the families of the earth. The Gentiles are not plan B. Just get it out of your head. The church is not the Johnny-come-lately. The church was always, or I use the word church there, but you know what I mean. I mean the grafted in Gentiles, which the church seems to largely be comprised of. Although, in reality, the church is remnant Israel. I know some of you listening to my podcast are going to try and correct me. No. The church is, in fact, remnant Israel, which is comprised of Jews and Gentiles. However, historically, the church sees themselves as Gentiles, and as such, they are not plan B. They are not an addition to Israel in that sense that they're not a replacement of Israel in the sense that they come along and Israel gets displaced. Nor are they a separate entity from Israel. They're not dispensationally placed in history so as to say that Israel existed and then the church now exists and then somehow maybe Israel will be brought back into existence. That doesn't work either. Both of those are ditches that we want to avoid. Both dispensationalism on one side and supersessionism on the other side. No, God has already promised that He would bless all the families of the earth, and this He would accomplish through the nation of Israel. Okay? He started with one man, Abraham, and now He is establishing the priestly line within the offspring of that one man. He's singling out representatives and leaders within the group. Ironically, the ultimate focal point of Hashem's glory would culminate in one man. Isn't that neat? He starts with one man, He builds a family, He builds a nation, He builds a people, He grafts in some people, and then He culminates it in one man.